So, I mean, this is the first 30-minute bite-sized CPD session that we're running this year, and I'm really grateful to Gaynor and Fahrah for making the time today. And a really important topic for us in the coaching industry. And I just wanted to just set out why I'd asked Gaynor and Fahrah to be here today, because I suppose personally, I've been having my own inquiry into this topic for a while now, with the support of my supervisor, but also as an organisation that train coaches, and we provide supervision for coaches. This is a topic that we're seeing come up and being raised more and more and more. So we really wanted to provide a space to start a conversation, and also hopefully an inquiry for you in terms of your practice as well. So I just wanted to say that with all of these sessions, I'd just say, just notice your responses as we're having this conversation today, because I think it's really some useful information we often experience when we notice ourselves and how we are responding to topics. But I'm really hoping there'll be questions that are raised for you. And again, questions that you can take to your own supervision and explore as coaches. And I'll perhaps say a bit more about my own experience later on in the session. But just to introduce Fahrah and Gaynor as well. I mean, when I was thinking about this session and who could support us to have a conversation around racing coaching, I'd connected with Fahrah a number of years ago when Fahrah was training as a coach, and when I learned about the work that her and Gaynor were doing in organisations, there was a real sort of sense of serendipity as well. So, firstly, thanks to you both being here, and we can see the name of the organisation, Space for Race, and I just wanted to say, in terms of your work, helping organisations having some truthful conversations about race. And I'm sure you'll talk more about that as we go into today's session. So Gaynor, shall I pass over to you just to start the conversation?
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for having us today, and let's get started. So if we could go to our first slide, please, Damion. So welcome, everybody. Our intention today is really to begin the conversation in race on coaching, and this area can be sometimes overlooked. So today is really to begin that conversation on racing coaching. We're going to be offering you some practical tools to be more curious about your coaches and to elevate them. And there'll be a moment towards the end for you to reflect on your own practices as a coach, to really think about what more you can do in this space. Next slide. So why are we talking about race in coaching today? Well, I'd like to get you to think about your very first training session when you were becoming a coach. What was the space like? Who were in your group? And what kind of topics did you cover? So for me, I did my coaching in Holborn. It was a Saturday. And I remember thinking, my goodness, this course is very expensive, so it better be worth it. But I was greeted by about 30 people, and I was the only person of colour in that group. All the coaches were generally men, and we never talked about race. We focused on things like the coaching contract, developing trust, dancing in the moment of your coachee, but we never talked about race. There was almost this assumption that everybody was the same. So the coaching world does have some catching up to do. But the world is changing now. And racism, as you are probably aware in your own coaching spaces, it's being called out. People are a lot more vocal. They are exercising their right to be seen and to be heard. And so our work as a coach is to provide a space where individuals can bring their full self to the coaching space. Because if we don't provide that space, our work will be very limited, and we'll be coaching just the palatable issues that we can manage or handle, but the work must go a lot deeper. So today we're going to be talking about race in coaching and what you can do to support your coachees. So I'll hand you over to Fahrah.
Thank you, Gay. And next slide, please, Damion. So where can you create a space for race in your coaching? I'm going to talk through 4 areas here. Number 1, the first interaction is critical. Name it. We've put the little icon of an elephant there. As Gay described her coaching learning experience, no one spoke about it, but it didn't mean it wasn't there. So if you are a coach of color, coaching someone who is white or not of color, or vice versa, you are a white coach coaching someone of color, consider naming it on that first interaction. And how we have been working, we don't know all the answers, but what we have been seeing is working really well, is the practice of identifying yourself. I will demonstrate what this is like, but it requires you to do some pre-work on how you yourself actually identify in the race space. So I may say, I'm Fahrah, I am a Muslim woman, I identify as a Muslim woman of East African heritage. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to identify yourself as well. So this gives the person the opportunity to speak their truth around identity first and foremost. Even if you see somebody is of color, it may not always be the case that they identify as someone as color. So this is giving them an opportunity to really speak how they see themselves. That may change as you go through your coaching sessions, but this prevents the fear of saying something that maybe doesn't resonate with the other person. So first interaction, name it, say it, and speak it. Gay said in her training, there was this assumption that we're all the same. But if you can name the fact that we are different, that's the bit that's really crucial at the beginning. That's going to build trust and the opportunity to build more dialogue around identity and race. At the contracting stage, share your knowing. You may say something like, I know I do not represent your race. I know I do not know your lived experiences, but I would like to invite permission, or I issue a license here in this space for you to not hold back any parts of yourself for fear of offending or upsetting me. That contracting stage, as we all know, is super important and informs the quality of the work that we can do with our coachees. So giving this sense of humility and this sense of, I do not know everything, can again just really give an opportunity for further kind of movements on the dialogue around race and identity. Sometimes in our experience, we, as coaches of color, will be coaching someone who's white, and they may not speak their truth because they are worried of offending us. As Gay said, that restricts the space and the work that can be done. Similarly, if a white coach is coaching someone of color, they may not want to share their experiences because sometimes they have seen that when they share their experiences with white people, they may be shocked or get very upset or have a really emotional reaction. And it then becomes about them rather than the person who's sharing. So that's something to consider. Sharing your knowing. I know I do not represent your race. I know I do not know your lived experiences, but I still invite you to bring it all here because I can hold that space, and this is the work that we need to do together. Thirdly, the R, integro. So as coaches, we're often taught, and we, part of our work is to really question and challenge the reality of the person sitting across from us. And I remember once a white coach called me and said, I'm coaching an Indian man, and he feels that he has been racially marginalized in his organization. And I said to him, is that really true? A phrase that many of us have used or learned, is that really true? And that really upset the coachee and eroded the trust. And in that moment, he did not see a coach sitting opposite him. He saw a representation of all of the experiences that he'd had to date, the system that had restricted him, and that immediately changed the dynamic. So there's no hard and fast rule here, but the invitation is to really explore the reality of a person of color through their lived experiences. It's their truth that matters. So, even when I was learning coaching, it was like, if you're sitting in a court of judgment, where's the evidence to suggest this is really truth? That may not be appropriate here. So this is just an invitation to consider, really, it's their truth that matters. And you may wish to say something like, I understand that was true for you. Where would you like us to go now in the coaching session? Last one, the coaching space. Keep it real. And by this, what we mean is to really bring up your own awareness of your fear of offending or your compensatory behaviors. What we see a lot is when white people are coaching people of color, they may be so enamored and excited to see someone who breaks their unconscious biases or stereotypical version of a Black man or a Muslim woman, that they overcompensate in that moment. And what that does then is limit that person's opportunity for further growth. So something that white coaches may ask themselves is, would I still have the same reaction if it was a white person sitting in front of me? Not that we are all the same, but just to see where you're perhaps, over or holding back. And as Gay said, if we go deeper, we can really elevate our coaches, because after all, coaching is about unlocking that potential and going further than that person thinks that they could perhaps go. So I'll hand back to Gay now for the third question.
So what can you do to create a space for race with other coaches? And it really starts from the very basics, the learning. Damion and other coaches, this is an opportunity to really look at the training materials that you provide in your coaching and assess how inclusive are they? Is there anything missing out, or have you missed out in terms of race? Because when you think about other industries like the medicine industry and teaching, there's always an element in that syllabus that talks about race. It may come under the umbrella of diversity, but it's there. And so not to have any element of race in your materials, it's an opportunity to do more. It really is. And also consider the wisdom that you have in your own circles, specifically your coaches of color. How are you utilizing their stories, their experiences to really enhance the coaching experience for others? Think about your supervision as well. When your coaches come to these spaces, are they being questioned in the areas of race? Are you inviting that conversation? Because this is a perfect opportunity to discuss those issues. And sometimes your coaches may not invite that because they're not being asked the question. So if you are a coach and you are managing that supervision space, ask those questions. And I always say, The doing is in the learning. You can read, you can assess, but you've got to do the work. So I'd encourage you to widen your portfolio of coachees and really learn from those experiences. And think about the types of people you're coaching. Do they look like you? Diversify your portfolio so you can learn and you can develop yourself as a coach. And then finally, think about how you're supporting your coaches of color. Because as a Black person going into an organization where I am a minority and I'm coaching white people, that was a challenge for me. And I had to step into my own power and think, actually, I am the expert in this space today, and own it. So it works both ways. So think about how you can also support those groups. So I'm going to hand you back to Fahrah now, and we're going to look at the reflection piece. What action, what meaningful action can you now take as a coach to really elevate your coachees?
So I think it would be lovely to hear a little bit of reflection in the chat, or, you know, from you all who are listening. Here is a takeaway slide that hopefully can prompt and allow you to continue the reflection or the inquiry that Damion has set up for us all today. And here's just a summary of what we've covered, and I'm not going to go through it all again, but what I am going to highlight is, for each question, we've got a key reflection and a key action or an invitation for you to take forward. So why are we talking about race in coaching? Key reflection here is, how comfortable do you feel? Because if you're feeling comfortable, you're not going far enough. So the key action is to educate yourself. We've got some books on the following slide, which we can show you in a moment, but there is so much out there. But as Gay said, you can read everything and be an expert in the theory, but it's really the practice that's going to help. So try something like talking to someone of a different color, not even in coaching capacity. If that's where you are, just take one small step. It shouldn't feel overwhelming, but you should feel a little bit uncomfortable. Think about, you know, where you can create a space for race with your coachees. And the key reflection here is, how much space for race do you create in your coaching? Maybe it's something you just ignore, or you hope won't come up, or you just really don't want to offend, or you will avoid taking on those clients. Or if you're a coach of color, maybe you're holding back because you don't see yourself in those organizations or in those spaces. But this is an opportunity to be open, be brave, and be bold, whether you're a coach or a coachee. And lastly, what can you do to create a space for race with other coaches? How can you support others? There's always something we can do. Me, even though I'm a person of color, Damion was saying, we had that connection together. I can then be a bridge. I understand his world a little bit more, so I can bring others in. You know, all of us have something that we can offer or support others with. So let's try and share that wisdom. And the key action here is really to reach out to the coaches of color in your cohort, in your supervisory groups. Talk to them, start a conversation. It may feel uncomfortable, but that means you're doing it right. So if we could maybe just go on to the next slide, which is books. And I'm gonna just say that here are some books. Damion very kindly recommended this first one, Being White in the Helping Professions. So it's not specifically around coaching, but it has an interesting perspective. Two books that Gay and I always recommend to our clients is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, and this book is Anti-Racist. And this book is Anti-Racist has a lovely identity exercise, and that piece around how do you identify, it gives you a really nice kind of step-by-step process of working through that. And the last one there is a book that Gay and I are compiling, which is gathering together the experiences of coaches of color, because we couldn't find a book to support ourselves, so we're trying to write one. So if you are a coach of color, or you know any coaches of color, and they're happy to share their story, please get in contact. And the last slide before I hand over to Damion is just one which is about us, our work. We have had a real demand for a support group for coaches of colour, which we're developing now. But we offer one of our offerings is one-to-one and group race coaching, as well as professional race advisory and training services. So if you need more support, please do get in touch. And over to you, Damion, for maybe some questions and your own announcements.
Thanks, Farah. And thank you, both of you. I mean, it was very concise, you know, and clear in terms of what you've set out. And I'm sure there's been some questions that have been coming up for people. And just before I go there as well, I think, if I may, you know, this sort of sense around, you know, as a coach in these moments, it's again this awareness of what's the impact, you know, because I think deeply, if you think about the fight or flight response that's often triggered, you know, that sense of what are my impulses, you know, in this conversation, and just being curious, because I think that, you know, it's not about whether that's right or wrong. It's the sense of learning a bit more about yourself in terms of being able to hold that space in a resourced and expansive way. And I think, you know, that piece that you've been talking about, Farah and Gaynor, in terms of really helping the other person be seen and heard, you know. So I suppose the other piece for me is just that encouragement, you know, maybe noticing now, thinking about this topic, you know, some sensations that are present for you, and just being curious around that rather than judging it, you know, just notice what's the natural impulse here for you, because that would be a good sense around what might happen for you in this space that you're, you know, trying to hold in an expanded way. So just before I've got some announcements, because it's great that we've got a bit of time for this. Just any reflections coming through. It'd be wonderful to hear any reflections or questions that are coming through in the chat panel, please. So, you know, again, if you click on everyone, and I can see some comments there that have come through from Martin and Charmaine, thank you for those. But if there are any other perhaps questions or that are coming up for you that you would like me to sort of have a conversation with Gaynor and Farah around, you know, please put them in there.
And Damion, one's just come up, I think, maybe direct to me from Ben. I'll just read the question. I'd be curious how you frame the invitation to identify and how to deal with someone who doesn't wish to self-identify, and in brackets, is this common? So I'll just give a little bit of an overview, but then invite Damion and Gay to contribute. So this invitation to identify is a new concept that we're working with, Ben. And it doesn't just focus on race. It also, actually, we got the idea from Microsoft, who have actually, they're trialing this in all their meetings. So someone would turn up to a meeting and say, hi, I'm Farah, my pronouns are she, her, I identify as this race and, you know, maybe even this gender. So this could work for many other strands of inclusion and diversity. The reason we wanted to trial it out, Ben and others, is that what can happen is you're faced with someone who's a different color. Say you met for a chemistry session. Do you say that immediately? Hello, you're black. That would maybe not always be appropriate. And I don't actually know when that would be immediately appropriate, because you haven't built up any trust. So what this aims to do is to demonstrate your own self-awareness, your own ability to bring a bit of vulnerability into the space by identifying who you are, and then offering the same opportunity to the other person. I'll just finish off and then invite others, but it is common for people of color not to identify as someone of color, and they would find it quite offensive to assume otherwise. And that may be because that person has gone their whole life maybe working in an organization where actually it's been harmful for them to identify as a person of color, and therefore they have created a professional persona, and maybe even in their personal life, that doesn't relate to their color. So that can happen. I'll just invite Gay to add anything there, and Damion also.
So I would add that some of the coaches that I've had who are of a different race, they don't always realize that they're holding on to their identity. They don't realize that actually the way I see myself is almost holding them back at work, because their persona at work is very different. And so it's about asking those questions that enables them to reveal who they are. It's not just about ticking a box, it's about taking down those layers. Because I've had coaches who are in tears because they've never talked about being a Black woman or a Black man. But the opportunity that I gave them to speak their truth and to take down the armor, it just cleared the space. And that's where the real work happened. So it's not always a tick box, how do you identify yourself? It's about taking down those layers and giving people that space to show who they really are.
Thank you. And a role modeling that vulnerability in that moment as well, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, by the coach willing to do that, there's an invitation for the coachee to, you know, step authentically into that space as well. And I'm just thinking, so if people do want to get in touch, because I've seen a message from Charmaine, they can just use your website to get in contact.
Yeah, they can.
I mean, otherwise, you know, feel free to drop me a message and I will put you in contact with Fahrah and Gaynor. So there's one more question that's come through, but I'm just conscious of time. So what I would do is I will share that question with Fahrah and Gaynor afterwards, and then we will send a message out to the group in response to that question. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question that Kerry has put forward. So yes, we'll, and just to finish off, I mean, you know, we don't know all the answers. We are trying our best. We're moving forward in this space. And if you also hear anything and you have other ideas or you've had other experiences, we would love to hear that and you know, share that wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So I'm just going to press stop record.